Well, it's safe to say it wasn't a great weekend for Tottenham. Another defeat, losing 4-2 at Wolves.
Yeah, focus firmly on that trip to Germany for the quarter-final second leg against Frankfurt in the Europa League. Well, now we can speak to Ricky Sachs from the Last Word on Spurs podcast. Very good morning to you, Ricky. How are you feeling? Can you sum up the mood of the fans after yesterday?
Morning, ladies. Firstly, hope you're both well. I just think we're at a point now where we are just so absolutely drained by this season in general. That I know we jokingly have maybe said in the past as Spurs fans, you know, we take 17th and win a trophy. It's not only until you go through this kind of season that we've had in terms of defeat after defeat after defeat, just how draining that is mentally as a fan, confidence-wise, to try and raise yourself for yet another game. You know, this team is a reflection of its manager and its captains. We are clueless, we're invisible, we're weak, and we're calamitous. And to be fair, you know, we just break all the wrong records continually under POSTECOGLOU. Spurs do a big Tottenham with regards to the ownership and Daniel Levy, but the reality is that Spurs are 15th in the Premier League. They're 2 points off 17th, 17 defeats across the league this season, 21 across all competitions. You've got a manager that's had a 35% win ratio. You know, we're on course to probably finish with our lowest ever points total in the Premier League. And it's really, really hard to see and understand a way in which POSTECOGLOU is still in the position as head coach of the football club. It just seems pure and utter negligence by Daniel Levy and co that this guy is still remaining in a job. It's unbelievable, really. Unbelievable.
Yeah, Ricky, now they've got that huge game coming up on Thursday night, 1-1 after the first leg. Just how big is that match?
Yeah, it's a massive match. Of course, it's the biggest game in Spurs' season. And really the only thing that's really kept POSTECOGLOU, you feel, in a job has been the Europa League and the fact they can somehow secure European football. But to be honest with you, ladies, I don't want to kid all the Spurs fans out there as well that do listen and watch Last Word on Spurs, that I cannot see a way under the current fan feeling and the mood around the club how Tottenham are going to progress to a semi-final of the Europa League when at the moment the form is absolutely on the floor. And yes, the players, you could say, raised themselves in the first leg and they obviously came away with a draw, should have maybe won the game. But, you know, when you're at a point where I think Tottenham have now lost more league games this season than Pochettino lost in the 2016, 2017 and 2017-2018 combined, it's very, very hard to see a way in which Tottenham are going to raise themselves to somehow progress in that second leg against Frankfurt. And I just think it's at a point now where Daniel Levy, if he was genuinely serious about not only Tottenham as a football club, but wanting to win the Europa League, you'd make any kind of a change between now and Thursday to lift the morale, to lift the mood. And when you think about it, he sacked Martignol at half-time against Getafe in a Europa League fixture. He sacked Pochettino when he, 5 months before that, reached the Champions League final. He sacked Jose Mourinho 5 days before a Carabao Cup final. It's incredulous to think how POSTECOGLOU should take that fixture on Thursday, given the form that we're currently showing, given the players' confidence is on the floor. And then you've got a situation where Vicario, Bergvall, Romero, three, many would argue, of Spurs' most important players, made really key, pivotal, massive errors in that game against Wolves. How you're going to get the best out of these players. For me, they've mentally, emotionally checked out. I think the manager, who I've defended for a lot of the season in terms of really being a human shield for Daniel Levy, looks absolutely beaten. And I think Spurs fans need to come together in our droves now to really try and help force change at the football club. And to be fair, Change for Spurs are trying to do that with relation to another upcoming protest ahead of the Crystal Palace game. And there needs to now be, I think, a real emphasis and shift in terms of trying our best as a fan base to really push for new ownership at the football club.
You mentioned a lot of the negatives there and the stats. You don't need me to tell you, but have you seen any positives from Spurs, particularly in that first leg?
I mean, look, it was an improvement on what we've seen, but the problem is Tottenham as a club, especially this season under POSTECOGLOU, it's been moments. There's been moments of glimpses that have maybe given you hope, but the reality is that you can't kid football fans that go home and away to watch the team. His relationship with the supporters is at an all-time low. There's no real connection there to make you feel he can even win the fans back should he progress to the semi-finals. It just feels that there's been no plan. There's been no sense of any feeling from Daniel Levy that there's any kind of backup with regards to this season, because I've been on it, ladies, with you quite a few times during the season where Tottenham should have and could have changed the manager on multiple occasions and have let this situation play out and play out and play out now to a point where we've all kept saying, once he gets his players back, once we get to the FA Cup game, once we get to the semi-final against Liverpool. I mean, again, look, this is no disrespect to Ange Postecoglou, but he will go down as one of the worst ever managers in Spurs' modern history. And that's not all his fault. I think you could look at a number of reasons with regards to recruitment being a key one as to why Spurs are what they are. They've got some really exciting young players, not enough experience there for me, but all roads lead back to Daniel Levy and ENIC for the mess Tottenham find themselves in.
Ricky, let's just play devil's advocate here. You're pretty set on Ange Postecoglou needs to go. What if he does win the Europa League? Can he stay? Would that be enough?
I think we're at a point now. Look, if Ange Postecoglou somehow miraculously won Spurs the Europa League, which, can I just say, I just can't see happening. As much as I'd love to see him win it, I can't see it happening. I think, I don't want to speak for all Spurs fans because that'll be unfair, because there's some Spurs fans that still remain a backer of Ange Postecoglou. I think it'd be very, very hard to see a way in which, even if Ange does win the Europa League, which would make him, trophy-wise, the most successful Spurs manager since 1984, I find it impossible to feel how he'll be there beyond the summer, given the mood around the fan base at the moment, and given that there's no, as I've said, connection between ourselves as fans and the manager. And, again, to come out and say it's unusual that we've had, the errors that we've made in that game against Wolves, these have been errors that we've seen through the season with Tottenham, individual errors. And one of his biggest backers has been Christian Romero, a player that's been linked away from Tottenham pretty much the whole season, whether it's Real Madrid, whether it's Atletico Madrid, let him down time and time again. And the indictment, I think, of yesterday is that Romero is the first player that walks straight down the tunnel and doesn't even acknowledge the travelling away fans, which I think tells you everything that's wrong about the club right from the top in terms of leadership and where we are as a football club. We're rudderless. We are really at a point of no return under ENIC and Daniel Levy. And I think we are in a similar situation to where Newcastle fans feel they were under Mike Ashley, where they are waiting and waiting and waiting for somebody to come in from the outside and give the fans back their football club. Because right now, as a Tottenham fan, there's nothing that gives you any confidence that the future is bright at all.
Ricky, thanks so much for joining us. Always good to get your thoughts. Speak to you soon.
Thank you so much, ladies. Have a lovely day.
More goalkeeping woe for Manchester United. We'll get the views of a former United goalkeeper. It's coming up live next. Stay with us.